Whether it's peer pressure, an assignment at work, or just an inner desire to read more, you decide, okay, I do know I need to, or I want to read more. And you might be wondering, how do I read more books? Hi, my name is Tiffanie Kellog, and I am an avid reader. I love reading as much as possible. And so when somebody asked me the other day, how do I read so many books? How could I read more books? I was really excited by the conversation, got me all lit up. And then I'm like, I should record a video. So here we are, coming to you, not my normal place. If you're usually here with me for my YouTube videos, I decided I would come to, I call this my bookshelf room. Some people might call it a library. It's not all books, but this little wall here is a lot of the books that I've read over the years that I've kept and collected. And so I'm excited to talk about how to read more books. And I've got actually a couple conversations that we're going to have in this realm of reading. Why we should read more books, how to read more often, how to read more books, how to motivate yourself to read books, how to consume books, where can I get books for free, best site for free audio books, and Tiffany's tips to read more books. Whew! So yes, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to books. And so I hope you're ready. Though if you want to skip ahead to one of those conversations, in the description below, feel free to click on the timestamp and it'll take you right there. Why should we read more books? Okay, I love this idea of reading more books, but why? So I went online and I was looking for some quotes and some facts, and I've got some. And one of the ones I saw was by J.K. Rowling, and I'm like, oh wait, I've read Harry Potter before. I think that would be awesome. Let's go there. So J.K. Rowling shares, I don't believe in the kind of magic in my books, but I do believe something very magical can happen when you read a good book. And I was like, oh, yes, totally. I think it gives us an opportunity, whether it's magical in the way that we're making ourselves better, or it's magical because we get to escape, or magical for whatever reason it may be. I think we each decide what that magic looks like, but it's a huge opportunity for us. And there was actually a study done by the University of Sussex that shared, reading books reduces stress levels by 68%, which beats a whole other slew of things. Listening to music is like 61%, 54% is having a cup of tea, walking, playing video games are all less. Reading a book silently for 6 minutes helps us reduce our heart rate, reduces our stress, reduces our tension. So even just a short little read, maybe a chapter, can make a huge difference for our mental health, even in our physical health. So there's tons of reasons why we should read. Those were just a couple I wanted to share with you. Now let's take a look at how to read more often. So it is sometimes hard to find time to read. And so I think this is one of the things you may want to prioritize. So do you have it scheduled in your calendar, some reading time? I mean, why not make an appointment with yourself to spend some time doing some reading? Okay, and this one's kind of a little gross, but what if we didn't take the phone into the bathroom? Like, I'm not one of these people that spends lots of time in the bathroom, but I know there's plenty of people out there, like my brother, who spends like a ton of time in the bathroom. What if instead of playing on the electronics, we actually spent that time reading? How many of us would be able to have more time to read, even if it was just there? Or perhaps it's we don't turn the TV on until we've read a chapter that day. My goal is I want to make it fun and easy. I actually have, it's not up because it would be in the way, a hammock right here. It's my reading hammock, but it gives me the opportunity to sit in a different place in the house and get to relax. I get to read in a little hammock inside. Maybe you have a special chair, a special corner, an alcove. Maybe it's something that you get to go outside. Make it fun for you. Another thing for how to read more often, read something that you actually enjoy reading. Reading is kind of like an exercise that you're doing. You're training the muscle. So if you're not loving these kind of books, maybe we would start with those kind of books, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk more about that in the Tiffany's tip part at the end of the video. Let's switch over now to how to read more books. So I think, as I just mentioned, it is about, that muscle that we're building in our brain. And so whereas if we're not reading a lot right now, maybe if we start to read a little bit more, we're going to get used to it. And so it gets easier and easier as it goes along. And who knows, maybe you'll actually fall in love with it, even if you don't like it now. I get some people are like, I am not a reader. That's fine, but maybe we start small, and as we begin to do it. I know when it came to like yoga, I was not into yoga, but I kept doing it, and then I fell in love with it. Now I couldn't imagine life without yoga or without meditation. And I definitely couldn't imagine life without reading. As a kid, it was like we had the Game Boy, one for the three of us to share. And I always had my book. So we would pass the Game Boy around, but in between the turns, I would get to read my book. You would rarely see me without a book. And nowadays with these, electronic devices, I've got the Kindle app and I always have a book with me, ready to go in case I've got some extra time. I am currently reading Limitless, which talks all about, unlocking your potential. And chapter 14, which I haven't gotten to yet, talks about speed reading. So I'm really excited to get there to see how to read quicker. So maybe if reading is something that you want to do more of, check out Limitless. I'm about halfway through and totally loving it. How do you read more books? Back in the day, at least when I was a kid, we would go to the library in the summertime and say, here are the books that we read. And the more books we read, the more personal pan pizzas that we got from Pizza Hut. I love the idea of kind of here's a bribe. My little sister-in-law, who is a horror fan, we're into Stephen King. And so I was like, okay, will you read it? So I actually bribed her with a $50. Yeah, I get a personal pan pizza. She gets a $50 PlayStation gift card. But I'm like, hey, if you read it this summer, it's not a small book. It's 1,000 pages, almost 1,100 pages. So I'm like, if you read it, I will buy you a $50 gift card on PlayStation. Hysterical, but I bribed her and hey, it worked. So maybe you don't have somebody else to bribe you, but could you bribe yourself? Hey, if I do this, then I get this reward. Or if I don't finish this book, here's my consequence. So you could play around, be creative on how you motivate yourself to read more. Now, if you need some outside motivation, one of the things that I love to do, especially with harder to read books, is start a book club. And maybe it's not always harder to read books, but if it's a business book and I want to actually implement it, then I may be like, okay, let's start a book club. And I'm currently in 3 different book clubs right now. Some people look at me like I'm crazy, but I'm like, it's a chapter a week per book, 30-minute conversation. And what I love about this is it actually helps me create and do action. When I'm reading Stephen King, I'm not looking to implement any of that into my world. When I'm reading Harry Potter, not a lot of magic going on here, at least not the kind you use a wand for. However, it does give us the opportunity when we're reading in groups to actually get things done. And so I love being a part of book club because it helps me be accountable and it helps me to do the stuff that I'm supposed to do because the book said do it. I know one person and they're like, oh, my goal is to read 2 books a week. And I'm more power to you, but are you doing anything with the information? Now, I read at least 2 fiction books a week, probably. Heck, I read 2 fiction books yesterday while also working 8 hours and, relaxing and dinner and such. I am a fast reader, so it does help, but that doesn't mean, it's good or bad. It's just an opportunity for us to have that adventure in our mind, whether we're learning more or whether we are exploring history or whether we are in fantasy. So if you're thinking, how do I find a book club or how do I start a book club? I actually have videos on those here on YouTube because I love the books and I think it's such an awesome opportunity for us because when we learn more, we earn more. And I get not all books are about learning, but many of them can be. How to consume books. So it's an interesting thing because I think sometimes people are like, well, I read books, I don't listen to books. And I'm like, consume books however works for you. Are you listening to them? Are you reading them? Whatever works. To me, if I'm getting the information, if I'm hearing the story, if I'm learning the details, I'm still getting it. So I think it's 100% fine to do the audiobooks, to do regular books, whatever works for you. Which brings me to, where can I get books for free? The library? In all seriousness, no, I'm dead serious. So there is the library. And what I love nowadays is not only can you get the library, go to the library and get stuff. Also, they have apps. So Libby and Hoopla are my 2 top apps that I'm using from my local library. So you have to have a local library card. You can go to the app and they have different content. Like some of it's the same, but some of it's different. And they have audiobooks. They have ebooks. They have magazines. They have some movies sometimes too, music. So we're able to get it for free. Also on the Kindle, I'm a huge Kindle fan. I think I'm on my 3rd Kindle now. I've killed 2 Kindles in the years because I just read all of the time. A lot of the classical books are out of copyright, so those are free. And you can actually go into Kindle and search like the top 100 free business books, or I searched the top 100 free romance novels or horror. So you can actually go into Kindle and search for free books. And there's quite a few. I have gotten a ton of books for free. And then usually it's like, hey, you get the book for free, and then there's the next book in the series. I try not to do the cliffhanger ones, but I'm like, if I really like that author, then there's a few that I've bought dozens of books from them because I read the first one for free and totally loved it. Now, best sites for free audiobooks. So I already mentioned Hoopla and Libby. Those are the library apps. I know I love Audible. It's really amazing, but those aren't free, and so we're here for the free. Though I do know if you have an Audible subscription, there are books now inside of there for free that you can get. They're like Audible specials. The other place, which is an interesting one to get books for free, YouTube. Yeah, I know. So I want to listen to Rage by Stephen King, but it's not in publication anymore. It's out of print. It's like a school shooting. I don't know. I haven't listened to it yet. And so it's like something that he pulled out of print, and I'm like, I want to listen to it, and I'm looking everywhere and I can't find it. Well, it's on YouTube. It's a 4-hour, somebody's reading it. So I'm not saying this is somebody professional audiobook read, but somebody's reading it and I can listen to it for free. So you can even check out YouTube. Tiffany's tips to read more books. Whew, I have so many different things that I want to share with you. Where do I even start? So let's start with immersion. I think that sometimes when we can immerse ourselves in a time period, a world, a subject matter, it can make it easier because like we're still continuing. It's the same reason why I think people love to watch series on TV. You know, do I watch a movie and then I have to find another movie, or I have to find another movie? Or do I watch the movies where there's 8 of them? Or do I watch the TV series where there's a dozen seasons because I get to stay immersed? And so like on my wall, I have, lots of different immersions going on. This is all my Dark Tower, all by Stephen King. Over here, I've got actually some more Stephen King books. I found these in the recycling bin, and I haven't put them into the Stephen King section yet. I've got my Harry Potter books over here. The Dragon Riders of Pern is a series that I started years ago. Tons and tons of books. And it just gives us the opportunity to live in a world. My buddy Chris, he is really into World War II. So he's not necessarily reading the same author and all of the books, but he's into that subject. So he's, diving deep into it. I've been really working on habits in 2021. So I've read several books on habits. So you could immerse yourself in a topic or in a time frame. There's lots of ways that you can do that. And to me, it's easier if I'm immersed. I want to kind of stay in that universe because it's comfortable. If I'm reading a book and it sucks, I put it down. Used to, it's like, okay, I've started it. Let me keep doing it. But no, if I'm reading a book, now if it's a business book and I'm trying to do it for betterment, that's when I usually turn it into a book club book because I'm having a hard time. But if I'm reading a book and I'm just not enjoying it, I may put it down. Now, sometimes I'll come back and try it again. For example, I've got some Stephen King books on the shelf. I've got 1 or 2 that I haven't actually been able to get into. I'll come back to. I've had a couple that I started and it took me a while. And so sometimes it's meant to be and you can come back. But to me, if you don't like it, don't read it. Quit it. Done. Over. Next. Move on. Another thing, so I know I mentioned book clubs, but I think there's also the opportunity to be in community. And with social media nowadays, it's super easy to find a Facebook group. Well, okay, maybe I shouldn't say super easy, but for bigger authors, there's Facebook groups that you can be a part of that really talk about their work, that get into it. I know I'm part of Stephen King's group called The Losers Club. They have a podcast. It's a long one. Can't tell I'm a Stephen King fan. But I've also joined the Limitless group on Facebook. I've joined the Atomic Habits group on Facebook, a couple business books that I've looked into. And so we were able to discuss and keep that community alive, keep that knowledge alive, and it lasts with you a little bit longer. And the last thing I want to share, I think, read what you enjoy. If comic books is what you want to do, that's reading. Magazines is reading, newspapers is reading. It doesn't have to be, give me an actual, hard book. It's okay to read on the Kindle. It's okay to listen. Consume whatever you want, however works best for you. There's no right or wrong. And if somebody's like, oh, well, yeah, no, comics don't count. Well, why not? Heck, in college, this was actually required reading in my college course. It's a comic book. Now, it does take a look at World War II. It talks about, you got the mice that are the Jews and I believe the pigs. It's been a long time since I read it, but I actually kept these from college, and the pigs are the Nazis. And so, I mean, these are college required reading that I did, and it's a comic book form. So read what works for you. So of all of the things that I've shared, what do you think is going to be easiest for you to implement? Where do you think you're going to be able to read more books? What do you think is going to be the difference for you? And maybe what book is up next for you to read? Do me a favor, leave all your comments in the comments below. I guess that's where you would leave them. And I look forward to hearing from you. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I have a whole playlist on Learn More to Earn More. It is focused more on the business side of things, so I do slip in some of my other favorite authors whenever possible. Happy networking, y'all.